to the ICE project. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Over the next 3 episodes, I'm going to be talking about player managers and just different models guys can use or players can use to help secure their future and not get fucked over. Now, my background is I'm a former professional rugby league player who's transitioned into business. And what I learned from business when I look back at my football career, I'm like, shit, I don't feel like that's working. But the model hasn't changed in terms of player management to where it is now. Now, I don't want to sit here and like blag player managers. I understand that's your job. I understand that's what they do. And there are some really great ones out there. But I do think the system is a little bit flawed. Now, all I'm going to do in these next couple of episodes is talk about different systems players can use. Now, my past experiences, I'm a proud Polynesian guy. And when I come into the league, Polynesians were a minority. We're not a minority anymore. Over time, we're going to become the majority. Now, I'm speaking on behalf of Polynesians, Maldives, and Indigenous boys. When I grew up, we didn't have access to business mentors. I didn't know anyone who ran in business. My first contract I got was for the Parramatta Eels when I was about 14 or 15 years old. And we were lucky that my mum had access to her boss who understand a little bit about contract law. And even though the money wasn't much, it was like $2,000, we still went through the process of talking to someone who was smarter than us and our family to see, this contract's all right and we're going to be okay. Now, I know a lot of people don't have access to this. Now, my job for these podcasts is not to rock the boat. I'm someone who used to love to rock the boat. I started YKTR Sports because I hated the way media was portrayed, and I feel like players didn't really have a leg to stand on. Now, I think players are in a great spot now where they understand the power of their social media influence or social media pages, that they've become their own media company. When a report comes out, you'll see players type up a little note, post it, and it puts everything to bed. Now, the next industry that has always felt a little bit yuck to me has been player management. Now, someone who understands business now, the player management model of let me negotiate a contract for you once and get a piece of the upside for the next 3 years feels a little bit yuck to me, feels a little bit weird to me. The fact that player managers' pay comes out before it even gets to your bank account feels a little bit yuck to me. Now, like I was saying, I don't think all player managers are bad. Now, I've heard great things about guys like Tyron Smith. I've heard great things about the Rose Boys. Like I said, I don't think there's always bad guys within these industries, but all I want to do is try and educate the boys so they can move a little bit smarter. And as a proud Polynesian man, I think this is my space to do so. Now, I'm just going to talk about my past experiences with my player manager. Now, I didn't necessarily hate the dude. I just always felt bad when I was talking to him. I always felt yuck. I always felt like I was working for him. And I know a lot of players think like this. Now, as a Polynesian, you've got to understand how we've been brought up. We've been taught to respect our elders. If we talk back, we get in trouble. So whenever we go into positions of talking to a head coach, talking to a manager, talking to your CEO, when we walk into rooms like that and there's guys with suits and they're talking all slick and like got pieces of paper in front of you, we don't really know how to conversate. Because a lot of us who have grown up don't have people to rely on in terms of business. So like I said, this podcast series is not to shit on anyone, but it is just to try and help educate and think about different ways. Now, if you look at the player management business model, it's built for scale. So if I have one player and I'm clipping 5%, 7%, I've had NRL players come up to me and saying, I've got a manager who's asking me for 10%. That shit's absolutely crazy. But if you think about the business model of player manager has one player and he's clipping 5%, and then 10 players, 50 players, 100 players. It's a model that's built for scale. And there's times where you don't feel important. You're probably not. Do you know why? Because you're only one of 50 players. You're only one of 100 players. And I still think the model's broken. Now, just going off my past experiences, I had the same manager from when I was 16 to when I retired when I was 27, 28. They were retired, didn't even get a message. And someone even like Corey Norman, who made a lot of money through playing football, he would have made his manager a lot of money through playing football. They retired, didn't even get a message. So I understand that managers only really work hard for you when you're doing really well. And the key part to understand this is like the better you get as a player, the more money you get as a player, you actually don't really even need a manager. Your percentages shouldn't go at 7%, 10%. It shouldn't get higher. It should go lower because they have to do less work. The work's already done for you. So, like I said, we're going to dive into this podcast. And the whole part of this podcast is just to educate, to help inform, and therefore you guys can have conversations with your player managers moving forward. So let's dive into episode 2.